Welcome, Eric, to Unleash the Knowledge's podcast, Everyday Extraordinary, where it's my job to push the message that everyone has extraordinary capabilities within them that simply needs to get channeled and activated. I do this by having amazing conversations with everyday extraordinary people like yourself. So thank you, Eric, for joining the show.
Thanks for having me. And thanks for the compliment inherent in having me here.
Absolutely. So you're the new author of the Almanack of Naval Ravikant, and we're going to dive deep into it. First and foremost, before we get started, I just want to say that, kudos to you to write a book that I personally don't think has necessarily been done for a living person. Usually, obviously, if someone's passed, it's like a biography, but you pretty much had minimal contact with the Naval and was able to, gather all this information of who he is to put into a book. So hats off to you.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a pretty cool, like, unique format. It was a lot of fun to do.
Absolutely. So we'll hop into questions now. And the first one I like to kick it off is, for those that may not know too much about you or just found the book and want to learn a bit about the author, can you share a bit about yourself?
Yeah. I grew up in the Midwest, kind of a small business household. So I've been hustling and selling candy out of my locker and getting paid to give kids rides to school my whole life. I always loved reading and writing, so I've been doing that kind of on the side. Career-wise, jumped into like startups. I was in college when Facebook and Twitter were blowing up, so that was kind of a natural draw to me. Spent a little while in San Francisco, and just always kind of poking at a side project like a book or a blog or something like that.
Awesome. That's sweet. I love that the way you're living your life now, through your 20s and into your early 30s, it stems from your upbringing and you've kind of kept that hustle going. So I can definitely relate to that. And I'm sure many others can as well. So I'm curious, the book, again, like I mentioned before, it's not the most orthodox book, or it's a compilation of information from podcasts and blogs and whatnot. Can you just take us back to the origin of the idea, how this came about, what made you actually take the leap to do so, and what those early steps were like during the process?
Yeah, I've been following Naval for a long time. I mean, when I was first trying to get, out to San Francisco and learn about the Valley, somebody told me, like, go read everything that Naval has ever written. And so I started reading Venture Hacks and have been following him on Twitter and going to talks and stuff for a long time. And I learned so much from him. I started referring friends to like his posts and his blog posts and tweets and podcasts, but not everybody kind of knows what to do with that. And it's tough to like jump into the middle of some of those things. So I just had this idea to kind of build a compilation of transcripts at first. That's all it was, like Poor Charlie's Almanac. It was just a few of his talks and a little bit of bio. And I just tweeted this idea, and it kind of, a bunch of people were like, yeah, I want to hear that. And Naval retweeted it and said he was happy to support it. And all of a sudden we were off, and I was like, oh man, like I thought this was going to be a quick 3-month project. And 3 years later, sitting with all this, million words of transcripts and raw materials in front of me, like diving into, the structure and trying to figure out how to make something tight and useful and helpful and interesting for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, my brand is predominantly on Instagram right now. That's where, I've found my own interest personally through that platform. I know you're big on Twitter, and I've learned now tapping into Twitter, it's an art to turn a message down into 280 characters. It actually takes time and effort to condense an idea and take out those filler words. So it's interesting how that probably helped you during this process of, taking the book down to 230 pages or so, which I think if we actually compiled all of the Naval's work in quotes, it's probably a 1,000-page item.
Yeah. There's a version of this manuscript that was like 600 pages. And I just had to keep whittling away, and it was tough to get to, but
I bet.
yeah, I'm a little bit of Twitter's my natural habitat by now. So I did think that helped, kind of fit everything together, and it helps you kind of craft a really concise, tight message, and get a really dense, like insight dense book, which is what I wanted. It easy read and insight dense. So when I hear people say like, I've got a highlight on every page, I'm like, hell yeah, that's exactly what I was going for.
Awesome. Yeah. Every word, every page. Yeah, exactly. Definitely has a lot of value in that. So if someone were to just come across the book on my page, your page, maybe they even see it in one of the bookstores, is there a number one takeaway you're hoping readers to gain that you can kind of put down to one piece?
I'm certain that everyone is going to take away something different. There's so much different. There's such a broad range of principles in this. Like, it's a book about principles for how to live your life. And some of them are about how to build wealth, and some of them are about how to build happiness. And, my 21-year-old self is going to read something different than my 30-year-old self, than my 40-year-old self. And so it's a lifetime of Naval's compiled wisdom distilled down. And so I think the same person rereading the book a few years later is even going to get something different out of it. So everybody's going to have one big memorable takeaway, but I can't possibly predict what it's going to be for different people.
Yeah, that's true. I like that point that each time you read it at a different age, 5 years or 10 years down the road, you're going to find something different. I think that could apply to most books, but this book in particular, Naval he's not a 20-year-old. He's a seasoned vet in the game that has gained so much wisdom and also has seeked out tons of knowledge himself. So I'm happy to read it, 5 years, 10 years as well, and see what I grab. So
he's in an interesting spot where he's like finished winning the game, and he's
yeah.
like still got all the moves of a successful investor and operator and capitalist, but also he's kind of like becoming introspective and building a family and philosophical. It's just kind of like got a foot in both of those worlds right now. So it's a really interesting time to take that sample, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to touch upon that, I guess I've been following him for a couple of years. I'm sure he's been putting out content for far longer than that. But my perspective is that he spent 20s, 30s, and maybe even 40s grinding, building something. AngelList and a couple other of his other startups, and now he's the spokesperson. Now he's letting everything that's inside of him get out, and he's able to educate others. So I would like to think that's kind of almost a life path. Like you put your head down and you grind, and then you gather all this info, and you're able to then put it out into the world and write books or go and do speeches, whatever that may be. But definitely seems like that's what he's doing.
You definitely see that pattern in biographies. I think, like Benjamin Franklin did that, and Andrew Carnegie did that. And, there's different chapters. Ray Dalio is doing it. Like, that's, I think, why he's starting to write more books and stuff now. He's like, I'm pretty done building and grinding, and I'm now like sharing and teaching and reflecting,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. So I guess I have two begging questions that I'm going to ask right now. First one, obviously you were interested in the Valley early on, and you wanted to be in the startup world. Did you use AngelList to find Zarly and get this job?
I did. I found this just through kind of like pure hustle luck of it was actually through the Startup Weekend Network. Just kind of being in the right place at the right time and meeting the right person. And AngelList was just getting started then. I think AngelList Talent actually launched after I got this job. So it's been a while, but I do have I got an AngelList profile. I've got friends who recruit there and raise money there, and it's real cool. I'm thinking about doing some rolling funds, but I haven't dove into that yet.
Cool. Well, actually, after reading the book, I've had an AngelList profile as well for some time. Haven't used them much because I just kind of transitioned careers, and I tapped into it, and I've actually been talking to a couple of guys. So it honestly wouldn't have been for this book to tap back into it, but
nice.
it's a genius of an idea. It's pretty much the LinkedIn for startups, and it's for that hungry kid that doesn't want that conventional career, and to potentially get some equity in a company, like it's definitely the place to go. So.
Yeah, you can learn a ton there, and just seeing what the jobs are out there and that there's equity there is huge. I've got one more secret section to release on the website, and it's actually the story of AngelList. So there's a lot more to kind of that backstory and how it all came together. It's a really interesting kind of founding story in its own way. Awesome.
Looking forward to that. And the second begging question is, how in the heck did you track down Mr. Tim Ferriss? We know he gets off the face of the earth. He likes to travel, but he also doesn't like to answer any sort of media contact. So I'm curious to learn about that journey for you.
Yeah, I mean, that did not have much to do with me. I think that's all, his connection with Naval and the fact that this is really, a public service. Like, the book is available for free. It's all available, like, on the website for PDF, Mobi, EPUB, like all of the ways that we can just give this thing away, we're giving it away. So it's a unique project in that way. There's 100% chance that if this was just Eric writing a book, like, it would not have a Tim Ferriss forward. But he and Naval have been friends for a long time. And I think Tim said he was excited that somebody was finally like putting this together, and said like a compilation of Naval's wisdom was long overdue. And right. Yeah, I get it. It's fun to see people support the project, and people who followed Naval for a long time get excited about it too.
Absolutely. No, that's great. And yeah, I mean, it seemed like this was bound to happen, whether it was going to be Naval who wrote a autobiography, which knowing his personality, I don't think that's ever going to happen. He, is humble in some ways, but also has other mediums like podcasts where you pretty much gained all this wisdom to share all of his thoughts anyway. But very cool. And most of my, 75% of my audience is 18 to 34-year-olds. I'm turning 25 this year. You're entering your 30s. I'd love to hear any wisdom from you or advice that you might have wished you knew at 22 coming out of college that you might have obtained in the past couple years, that
Yeah.
you wish that younger self knew.
Yeah, so something that I've learned that I found is a helpful tool, is knowing that there's like two modes in life. There's explore and there's exploit.
Mhm.
Where you take like one, it's like you go, maybe like go on a lot of first dates is like explore mode, and then like go all in on a relationship and get engaged is like exploit mode. And there's like that version in business and that version in learning of like, hey, I just want to take a 101 course of everything, or I want a PhD in this. And knowing that both of those modes are good and have their own proper like applications,
Sure.
and just I would lean, I spent a lot of time in the middle like trying to do both at once, and I think I would lean harder into one or the other of those and say like very deliberately like I'm in explore mode about this thing, I'm going to travel a ton and see where I want to live, and then like I'm going to go all in on one location. So just being
I like
more
that.
like aggressive on the split the barbell.
Yeah, that's actually wow. That's really unique. I've never heard that before. And that's really valuable. And I actually have a follow up question that I'd written that down before that kind of ties into that. But so you're part of a startup, or now it's many years into the game, but still a growing company that requires tons of your energy and time. I'm sure you wrote a book during this process, not only writing the book, but you had to do all the research and compiling effort as well. And then a bit we touched on before, you're active on Twitter, which
Yeah.
could take energy, could not take energy, but we live in a digital distracting world, and there's books out there like Essentialism and the one thing that speaks about having a maniac, like just a set focus on one thing, and getting great at it, reaching that self-mastery point. And personally, I find myself saying yes to a lot and spreading myself too thin. And then there's the old adage that says, the man who goes after two rabbits will catch neither. So I'd
Yeah.
love to hear your thoughts on all of that, like just about mainly for like the 18 to 20 9-year old or so, the person that's really trying to figure out what the heck they're going to do in life and what their impact's going to be, and they have all these interests but not being able to give 20% to each, and just that whole mess. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be unique for everybody, right? I think the explore exploit thing is helpful, a lens to see that in. Like if you don't love what you're doing, like don't go all in on it. It's not always obvious, whether like the career that you're in is going to be your forever career.
Mhm.
So just stepping back and thinking about some of those things, like if you're not willing to go all in on it, you should probably keep looking. Um, I don't know. It's a different by personality type too, right? Like I thrive in kind of like being a little bit of a generalist and looking across a bunch of different examples and learning about different topics and applying them to each other. Like I'm much more of a Munger guy than a Buffett guy, and like both types exist. But
Yeah.
like I'm not going to spend my whole life getting better at one specific thing, though that's perfectly valid life advice. I think also perfectly valid is like take a wide survey and learn how a lot of different learn about a lot of different levers and lenses and mental models about the world, and then apply those maybe all, and you end up in one industry. But there's a million ways to win, so like I wouldn't take any of that. Don't feel like you're doing it wrong if you don't listen to one particular book like Essentialism or Deep Focus or whatever the thing is. Like you can't let that tie into it. Not.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I guess one piece I'll add to that is you can have that insane focus during a day. It doesn't have to be a lifestyle or a lifetime deal. It's like, okay, here's 2 to 3 hours where I'm going to go in on this one topic. It's not my full-time job. It's not, who I am, but it's what I'm going to do in the next 2 hours. So,
For sure.
um, eh,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
No, Naval has his version of that is like work like a lion, not like a cow. Like you're not grazing all day every day. You're like dive into whatever you're interested in. The best book is whatever one you're going to devour. Like anything you're doing with enthusiasm is going to be better than whatever you're forcing yourself to do. And so like if you can do it with enthusiasm, you'll do it better and it'll stick more and you'll figure out how to apply that. And the pieces will make sense kind of looking back.
Definitely. And I think that might be the biggest thing I struggle with Naval's advice in terms of how he skims books and he just grabs different chapters. Obviously, I'm a big reader, as you can see behind me, but I'm also and I don't know why I guess I think this way, but I guess it's the right way to think to some degree. I always feel like there's a golden nugget in the last chapter of a book. So I have to read the whole thing because then I won't gain that bit. And also, chapter titles could be deceiving. You could
Yeah.
skim those and you can maybe find the best advice you probably needed in some chapter that it wasn't related to what you were looking for. So, but then again, time is running out, and I'm stoic in that sense where I do understand that, the day will come and we should be using our time very wisely, but I'm still caught between a rock and a hard place in that way.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, we just cleaned out our library too, and I was like, I can't throw away any books. What if they have the secrets? It's like, are you ever going to actually read it? Like, I don't know, man. There's a lot of great books. The opportunity cost of this book is like this other great book that I like. Yeah, it's a struggle.
Yeah, and that's actually, just to shed a little light on what I'm trying to do in my brand to some degree. I'm hoping to pretty much distill the big ideas, big topics from these books, take that time away from people, the actual process of reading them, and then just get it to them in 5 minutes, 10-minute bunches. And that can be done by me actually reading the book, which is ideal. But then there's other ways, obviously, to compile podcasts and blogs or so. But yeah, I mean, the knowledge needs to be heard in some way, but the time is not something that's abundant for all of
Yeah,
us.
yeah. There's a lot of books that are a lot more packaging than they need to be for the idea. Or even like it's helpful to have a spear tip, like this is the kernel of the idea. And if you love this, go expand it into the book. And if all you needed was this idea, keep going. That's great.
Absolutely. So two last quick questions I'd love to ask. One, any book or a few books that you find yourself gifting to others or potentially rereading, yearly or quarterly?
Yeah, I reread Poor Charlie's Almanack like somewhat consistently. I just revisit those talks a lot. I reread the Systems Bible pretty frequently because I find it hilarious, and it's really hard to kind of like get those ideas to stick in your head without revisiting them pretty often. I definitely revisit some fiction that I love,
Sure.
and just like I don't know, I've always been a rereader almost more than a reader. So I find great joy in going back through those things and just etching them a little deeper.
Awesome. I love that. And last question to tie in the title of this podcast show. What is your definition of extraordinary?
Oh, I mean, on a personal level, I think anytime you can like accomplish something that surprises you or surprises your past self, it's easy to
Mhm.
make progress day by day and forget how far you've come. But I think we've all done something that our past self would have thought was impossible. And remembering that and taking hold of it and using it to plan your future is a good way to think about extraordinary.
I love that. And yeah, definitely take a bird's eye view, a wider angle on your life, because it's one thing the day to day can seem the same, and not many people, or you personally won't see the growth that you're potentially having, but others will. And that could be a helpful tactic. So thanks so much, Eric. This was such a fun time to chat, and I'll keep sharing the book, keep sharing tidbits from it. I'd love to have you share where I could send people to learn more about yourself or the book itself, and keep following all your work and the secret chapters that may be releasing soon.
Yeah, for sure. Everything for the book is on navalmanac.com. The book's available there for free. You can read the whole thing there. You can download the PDF. We got great stuff that comes out on that email list. There's a ton that didn't make it into the final book that you can read there too. I spend all day on Twitter, so if you want to reach me, I got open DMs. I'm easy to find there. And I got some writing and other cool stuff coming on my personal site, which is just ejorgenson.com.
Perfect. I'll send them all that way. But thanks again, Eric, for the time, and hope to talk soon.
Yeah, thanks, Owen. Appreciate it. This was fun.
All right. Take care.